Hello, everybody. Okay. It is Saturday, September 3rd, 11:05. Some people might show up. It looks like we might even have one already waiting. But first I wanted to update and then maybe a little tiny rant that I don't want to suggest anyone is co-signing by having them split screen with me. Like, I just kind of wanted to share some thoughts. Not real long, but anyway, first of all, I am behind this week. I should be starting page 30 right now, and I'm still finishing page 29. 29 is, I would say I'm at least a day behind. I'm hoping to be starting 30 sometime in the back half of tomorrow. Just because this was a weird week. Some of it out of my hands, some of it not. Without going into specifics, I have a friend who's going through a tough time, and I have to admit that distracted me for a day or two. Like, I wasn't super productive at all. And then I had like a little staycation getaway thing yesterday. So I didn't get as much done yesterday as I wanted. So I'm behind, but you know what? It's 3-day weekend, and I'm confident I'm going to be able to catch up. I don't feel bad about it. Life happens. What can you do? And you just got to roll with it. So today my plan is really cover some ground with 29. It's already started. I would say it's probably, I'm looking at it right now. Maybe I'm about half done. I don't know. I mean, it's always hard to like quantify it, but I would say about half. My backgrounds are done. About half my foreground characters are close to done. It's just, actually, it's a lot of what's left is dinosaur drawing, which is something I was working on last week and the week before. Like, this is an area of the story where you're seeing a lot of dinosaur. So it's mostly that. But like I said, I don't see, there's no way I'm finishing this page today. Like, I'm just being realistic. Sometime back half of tomorrow afternoon, tomorrow evening. And then I'll have Monday off, which is great. I'll be able to sort of recover. So that's that. Let's see here. Hold on just 1 second. Okay. What? I'm trying to think if there are any other updates. Next week, I'll probably talk about it again because it's next Sunday, so a week from tomorrow. I'm going to be taking some live model reference photos for some extraterrestrial stuff in this book, Deep Earth 7, 1979. It's not really a spoiler, but if you don't want to know anything about 79, like, just mute it for 10 seconds. We're getting to the point where some aliens are going to show up in 79. And I want to go back to the same guy I used as a reference model for them as 97. I stood in for all the aliens in 75. I have a friend of mine, Kevin, who did all the alien posing for 97. And I like using him better than myself. He's a leaner guy. He's a thinner guy. I'm not, I'm doing all right, but he's leaner and thinner. And obviously, if you've read the comics, aliens are very, I can't like straight, just, well, there we go. There's an alien. But at least it gives me a better sense of like rough proportions and anatomy and stuff like that. And plus, it's far easier for me, even if I did think like, yeah, and I do intend to do some selfie reference stuff for some characters coming up. But it's a pain because it's really hard to see if, you know, you're doing the little selfie clicker and maybe you have the camera reversed on your phone on a little tripod and you're trying to, it's like not ideal. It's much easier to put someone in front of you and say like, raise your elbow, turn a little bit more this way. Can you tilt your, you know, and like actually see what you're getting and take the picture, as opposed to me doing it, taking a few pictures, then going and picking up my phone and looking to see if I got it. And like, ugh, no, that's not right. And then putting it back, and it's a hassle. So anyway, live model reference photos next Sunday, which I'm excited for. Okay, final thought. I'm going to do this while I'm sort of getting oriented here, so bear with me. I wanted to talk a little bit about my take. I'm nervous about this. My take on AI-generated images, okay? We've all been seeing these. Thank you, Jim. Yeah, big episode 20, which reminds me of another update I want to do after I go through this. Actually, I'm going to do it now. We're going to come back to AI-generated images. We've done 20 episodes. Double X, guys. We're there. I think there's going to be a little bit of a rebrand. I think I've tormented Squatch enough, thrown his name in the title for 20 weeks. 20 actually plus one because there was a Q&A week. I've been enjoying trolling him a little bit. You know, what's good for the goose is good for the gander. He's been a pain in the ass, you know? He likes to twist the knife into me a little bit, give me a little nudge, give me a little shit. So it's like, you know what? I give as good as I get. That's right. But that's enough, you know, like, so there's going to be a different name next week. I don't know what. I haven't actually really thought about it too hard. But I think, like, I've made my point. I've made him aggravated enough. I've enjoyed watching him on Foo's stream or whatever, talking about this guy, he names his show after me. He doesn't even have me on. This guy is not even doing an ounce of work. He calls it always working. I haven't seen any actual work. That's him. That's been him for 20 weeks. It was funny for a while, but now it's just kind of. Okay. So anyway, new name. I don't know. Maybe I'll restart the numbering. Maybe it'll be new name number 1. Or maybe it'll be new name, parentheses, formerly known as Always Working Squatch. You know, I don't know. I don't know what I'm going to do. But there'll be a little bit of rebranding going forward. I did it just for you. Just for you, buddy. Anyway, okay. So, AI-generated images. Now, look. The reason I'm talking about this, I actually have been holding my tongue on the AI-generated image thing for what feels like as long as we've been seeing them, as long as people have been typing in vampire chef in a kitchen and like showing their results, like, you know, and I admit I've played with it when it first hit for like 15 minutes. My reaction to it was a little bit like my reaction to, did you ever play that video game Scribblenauts? You guys know Scribblenauts? It's like a puzzle game. You can enter any word and the game will generate that thing for your player to use. So you can type in big mouth bass and like a fish will appear. You know, you can type in Thor and this kind of electric god appears. You can just, and when I played Scribblenauts, you know, it was fun for a half hour just to test the dictionary in this game. Just type in like weird random things to see what would appear, and like see what are the limits of this, and to see what it would make it look like. And then after you had kind of exhausted every weird, stupid thing to type in, a bridge, a butterfly, a cow wearing a top hat, like whatever, then it's kind of like, okay. And then I never touched it again. That's kind of been and I'm going to try and minimize my disclaimers about this, saying like, this is just my opinion. Maybe I need to put that up on the screen, actually. The opinions expressed in this video are Gary's, and Gary's alone. The reason I'm putting this up here is because I see my Facebook feed, I see my Instagram feed. I know some people are having fun with it. I know some people are really into it, okay? And I need to make it super, super, super clear. Like, I'm not criticizing. If you're one of those people, I'm not criticizing you. I'm not saying you're bad. None of that. Like, that's not it. Look, your favorite ice cream might be strawberry. Mine might be chocolate. I'm not saying you're a piece of shit for liking strawberry ice cream. What is wrong with your palate, man? Grow up and get into chocolate. Get serious about chocolate. I'm not saying that. I'm not. I'm just saying I don't like strawberry. I think strawberry is bullshit. You can love it, and that doesn't bother me. I don't like it. That's the tone I'm trying to hit with the AI generated image conversation, okay? I don't want anybody to clench. I don't want anybody to feel like they have to be defensive. You don't. What do you care what I'm not your boss. I'm not your dad. Who cares? Okay. That's disclaimer number one. No, but they might be. They might be by the time I get through this. I don't know. Second, I am not a prognosticator, all right? I can't tell the future. I could call this totally wrong. Let me share a story as an example. One of my college roommates, Luke, Cory, I told you, Cory and I talked about this a little bit last night. I'm going to try and step carefully. I'm going to try and be diplomatic. But don't worry, because once I get going on this, I have a feeling I'm going to slip up. So just hold on. Anyway, in college, one of my college roommates, a good friend of mine, Luke, he was an early adopter of digital music sharing, all that kind of stuff, MP3s. And he was excitedly explaining the whole thing to me when we were living in a dorm together. And I thought, this will never go anywhere. I poo-pooed front to back, top to bottom. I couldn't conceive of MP3 players getting small enough that you could carry them around. I couldn't conceive of them being able to untangle the legality of sharing music and all that, and the potential of people just burning everything and never paying for any music. That just didn't make. And in lieu of that, I couldn't even imagine why the record companies would ever want to play ball with this. Like, I thought, it was just, oh, this is only going to be a geek curiosity, and that's as far as it's ever going to go. And clearly I was so wrong. I mean, I think accurate about maybe the next couple years of it, like that it was going to be a lot of what I was anticipating, but that I didn't anticipate they would eventually figure it all out, and that would now be, like it or not, the predominant way to consume and enjoy music. Okay, so, maybe this is like more important, more interesting, going to be a bigger deal than I think. And I could be wrong. I don't know. but maybe not. Maybe I'm right. Finally, last disclaimer. Of course, I'm subject to my own biases and opinions, and the overwhelming bias I have when it comes to AI-generated imagery. Have you noticed I'm calling it AI-generated imagery and not art? We'll come back to that. My biggest bias when it comes to AI-generated imagery is I just find the whole thing sort of boring. And that's like, it's not even, that's not like me minimizing real hostile feelings. Like, it's like I'm bored. I don't find it as interesting that I think a lot of people, as interesting as other people do. Every time I see a think piece on the implications of AI generated images, I don't know if I do it audibly, but there's at least an internal sigh, an internal eye roll. And especially even when I read articles like the Vice article that I shared, which is part of why I'm talking about this. I stepped in it. I was doing a great job of not talking about AI generated images, not taking the bait, just sort of ignoring and walking forward, keeping my eyes up. And then, like a moron, I shared that Vice article, which I thought was sort of interesting. And that generated a lot, not only a few comments on the actual thing, but a lot of people messaging me, a lot of people forwarding that article to me before I posted it, wanting my take, wanting like, what do you think about this? But anyway, what is also exhausting to me is when I read articles like that Vice article and I see a lot of hand-wringing and a lot of anxiety and a lot of chicken littling. Not that I disagree with their basic concerns. I don't disagree with them. But some of it I feel like is a little panicked and outrage-filled. And I mean, it's the kind of stuff that you expect to find on the internet. It's a lot. It's just a little too much. It's all like turned up a little too high. All right, I think I got all my disclaimers out of the way. Let's see if there's anything here in the chat. Okay. Cory and I, like I said, we talked about this a little bit last night. And there's a Venn diagram with us where there's an area of overlap. Obviously, Cory is more oriented towards a lot of the stuff that I think you would expect if you follow Cory. A lot of like implication stuff. And, like when Cory talks about this, he's going to bring up things that I probably won't talk about. Like, for example, like the singularity and things like that. Not dismissing that that's not my main concern or orientation. We'll get to my orientation. Let's see here. Yes, I think he'll show up. I'm eager to hear him talk about it too. Like I said, we talked about it a little bit last night. Disagree, but don't worry, we're gonna get into it. Let's see here. Okay. Settle down. There's gonna be working. I can't talk and work at the same time. I'm gonna spit out my thing, let some guests in if they want to come, and just. Okay. So I guess before I get into my criticisms of this, let's talk about what AI created images are sort of interesting for, or at the very least, what I don't have an objection to. It's sort of interesting. First of all, it's sort of interesting just for like non-artists to play with for fun. Like me playing Scribble Nuts. Like, okay, sure. It's sort of interesting maybe for prompts. Like if you're trying to come up with a design or an idea or whatever, and you're just typing stuff in, I guess, as long as you're not, if it ends there, if it's like you're looking at that thing, it's like that's a starting point for you. And now you're going to go off in your own direction. Like that's okay. And then, of course, even though I don't really care about this stuff, and I'm living in 2022, I'm long past gushing over the brilliance of eggheads in a room somewhere cooking up some new piece of technology to take our attention. Like, whatever, but like, it just very objectively, is it interesting technology that clever people made and it showcases their cleverness? Yes. Okay, you know, now. Let's start with Colorado guy from the Vice article. So if you didn't read the article, some dude entered a Colorado State Fair art competition, entered an AI generated image that he messed with a little bit after the fact, but it's basically like what came out of the generator. Okay. Apparently he like up-resed it a little bit. He might have like, you know, messed around with, but it's essentially like that's the thing. And he won. First and foremost, let's just start with the easy thing. I don't know. I have not read the rules for this competition. I would feel like he probably should have that award taken away. If for no other reason, I don't care what the rules are. Presumably the rules say whatever art you submit has to be yours. And that's not his, nor is it even art. It is no different than if he decided to commission a piece from some artist, get it, and then enter it into a competition. And, you know, you'd be like, now his defense is, oh, I came up with the prompts. I was the idea guy. Like I came up with, you know, like I'm the one sitting there typing. That counts for something. My response as someone who's worked for clients, who's actual creator of art, is no, that doesn't count for anything. Absolutely nothing. Zero. In my opinion. Ideas are cheap. Ideas are easy. Ideas are plentiful. There are too many ideas. Anybody who's a working artist, you already know this if you're watching. How many times has someone come up to you with their idea? They're everywhere. There is no shortage of ideas. That's not interesting, and it certainly doesn't deserve to win a ribbon or a trophy or whatever the fuck this guy took home. Okay? That's my take. This guy's a creep. This guy's weird. This guy might have even been angling for like whatever the attention would be to it. Like I don't know, but all I know is whatever. Certainly, no one is probably thinking far enough ahead to write their competition rules to say no AI generated images. But certainly, it's whatever you're entering is your work, right? That should be in there. I wouldn't be shocked if they sit and claw back whatever this guy won. Okay. That's number one. Second, circling back to something I alluded. And this is more where I land, and this also explains my boredom with AI generated imagery. Okay. I made the point of saying, like, not only did he not make that art, it's not even art. This stuff isn't art. Okay. I don't know what it is. I don't know how you would define it. My crude understanding, and again, my lack of in-depth understanding is a symptom of my boredom with it and the topic. But my crude understanding is that this thing they wrote goes out and basically like goes through images on the internet and tries to merge and amalgamate these things into something that looks like something. Okay. But it's a Franken image. It's stitched together out of other things. If you want to test it, and this is something I got when I was entering the end of my interest in this thing, type in don't type in like a turtle pope. Like type in Cindy Crawford. Type in Brad Pitt and look at what comes up. You get this weird zombie collage version of them where they look like a creepy, undead, strange Franken version of them. You can tell, like, oh, this is like a weird smile from one image, and this is a weird, but it's all like composited and kind of, it's like you took a bunch of images in Photoshop and made a collage and sort of smeared them together. That's what it's doing. It's going and finding images. Now, I'm not a lawyer, but that opens up a whole other side thing about the legality of doing anything with this shit. Okay? If you're just sharing it and passing it around, fine. But I see people selling this stuff. And that is mind-boggling to me. To me, there's just an inherent legal gray area mess in all of that. Trying to, like, if you have people who are, and I've seen people do that, they're doing this. They're generating an image, they're setting up their Society 6 shop or whatever and slapping that shit on a pillow and selling it. Okay, setting aside the legal thing, where this is other people's images, you know, if any of that is even recognizable as someone's original work, what are you opening yourself up to, especially if you actually manage to make money off this thing? Setting the legal thing aside, since I'm not a lawyer and I haven't gone down that rabbit hole, how, with a straight face and clean conscience, do you charge people money for this thing you basically just, not even someone, something else made out of other people's stuff? It's just, I'm appalled, actually. Like, that's a line where I have no problem saying, like, no, this is just offensive to me. People somehow using this to, like, figure out, like, how to sell it or enter art competitions or whatever. Okay. But finally, why am I saying it's not art? And this is why I'm not particularly threatened by it, but I will talk about my concerns at the very end. It's not art. In my opinion, art is more than just an image. And art comes from an art. Art comes from an artist. Art has an intention. Art is saying something. Art is expressing something. Art, think about the Ebert quote about movies, why he loves movies. Movies are a machine that makes empathy. What is an AI-generated image making other than curiosity? What is it expressing to me? What is it telling me? What is it sharing with me? What life experience is it cluing me in on? How is it opening my eyes? Whose inner world am I being allowed to peek at from, you know, behind a curtain? Like, that's not, it's none of that. AI-generated images aren't saying anything to me. They're saying as much as me looking up in the sky and seeing a cloud that looks like a dragon, or seeing the face on Mars. It's all illusion. It's nothing. It's counterfeit. It's empty. It's a prop. It's like a movie set where it's just the front of the building. That's what it is. And the sad thing is, and this is where I do get nervous. I think, especially here, because this is the only place it matters in the West. Like, no hunter-gatherer society has to think or worry about AI-generated art. And I joked to a friend the other day that once the environment collapses and therefore modern civilization does, none of this is going to matter. AI-generated imagery isn't going to matter anyway, okay? Nor social media, nor anything else. Like, but give it time. Anyway. I don't know if I want to go down that path. Look. The only thing that I think is worth maybe hand-wringing about a little, I don't think as much as I'm reading, but maybe I haven't thought it through, is, are artists going to lose jobs because of this? My gut reaction was not really. Like, that was my initial reaction. My initial reaction is like, no. Yes, are some garage bands going to AI generate an image for their concert poster or for their profile picture or whatever. You know, is someone who needs a logo going to try and get an AI image generator to mock something up? Probably. My gut reaction was, yeah, maybe some artist is losing work, but those weren't great paying gigs anyway. And those are people who probably weren't even going to hire anybody anyway. They were going to find some semi-talented friend who can sort of scribble something out for them. So like that area, it's like, I don't know. But I wasn't particularly worried about it because to me, the greater threat to art jobs, especially here in the United States, and this is something that's going on for years, and I feel like people don't talk about enough. Somehow AI, and I get it, AI generated images, it works into the whole, like we're moving in a weird direction with technology, that's going to get talked about more. But I think what's a bigger threat to artists is the fact that people will go overseas and hire an artist who's living under a total different cost of living, where you can pay them like a quarter to the dollar and screw over people trying to make it as freelancers and working artists here in the States. That is a far bigger problem that costs far more actual jobs. We're losing way more jobs to that than AI generated images. At least and I don't see that changing anytime in the foreseeable future. Someday, maybe it will get much, much better and it'll be more of a threat. I'm not particularly worried about that. I'm not particularly worried about my job. Actually, not particularly, not at all. Like I work at a prosecutor's office, drawing crime scene diagrams, drawing victim injuries, anatomical drawings, stuff like that. It's very specific, it's very particular, it's working in conjunction with experts and attorneys, it's thinking about what the jury's going to want to see. This is something that, at least at this stage of the game, and I think for the foreseeable future, is completely not, it's completely safe from, oh, my job's going to get taken by a robot. That's not a thing. And most working artists I know, it's hard for me to conceive. Like, how is a robot going to replace Jim Lujan? Like, it kind of, that's where I'm like, this is much ado about nothing. This is a lot of chicken littling. Some stuff, yeah, like the stuff I mentioned before, logos, posters in a college town stapled up to a telephone pole. You know, that kind of stuff. Again, is that a real job that somebody's losing? Was anybody really getting that money? I'm skeptical. And again, and this isn't a bash on like, you know, someone in the Philippines or wherever who's like doing this kind of work over in America. That's where the jobs are going, guys. That's where they've been going for years. And to bullshit like Fiverr. Fiverr is a bigger threat to artists than AI generated imagery at this time. Okay. That's where I think maybe there could be some concern. Also, this is something I was talking about with Cory. Get ready. It's going to be an amazing documentary. You're going to find some con man or woman who presents themselves as a real artist in the gallery scene, in the fine art scene. They're going to be going to cocktail parties and sipping drinks. It's going to be a fancy white. Maybe not even, I don't know. But they're going to be swimming in that pond. They're going to be going to gallery shows. They're going to be sipping white wine. They're going to be hanging out with the fine art crowd, like the people who buy it, not the people who make it. And their whole career, they're going to be some overnight sensation. Their whole career is going to be AI generated art. They're going to be the Milli Vanilli of the fine art world. And then it's eventually going to come out like, oh, they made all this stuff. And their initial defense is going to be just like this idiot in Colorado. No. There's a lot of skill that goes into typing like werewolf Santa Claus. And then you're going to get defense. All these people who are conned, these people are going to be like, well, even if it is fake, like I had a real response to it. It really moved me. And that somehow, you know, it's like, so, and they're going to try and equivocate that way. And it's going to be great. It's going to be great to see these fine art dipshits bamboozled by some idiot who's typing stuff into a field and making those images and up-resing them with some other AI program and then selling them. Like, I can't wait. I can't wait. I'm already excited. I think I hit all my highlights. I think I hit all the major points I want to hit. It's not art. It's not art. And the main reason I'm bored, to go full circle here, is because what I look for in art is expression. What I look for in art is insight. Watch my top 5 videos with the great Jim Lujan. When I talk about the movies that moved me most, or the music that moved me most, it was because it flipped a switch in me. It made me, for a moment, empathize, step out of myself into another point of view and see it that way. I don't give a shit what a pile of code or a room full of Silicon Valley programmers, what its take on, you know, what a Loch Ness monster with a pipe looks like. This isn't interesting. It's a fad. I think if there's any justice in the world, it's a fad. It's a stunt. It's a weird little trick that they made the code do, and everyone's kind of enamored by it right now. And that's fine. And I hate to be the guy who's like standing around the sandbox while kids are playing and being like, what you're doing is dumb. Like, I don't want to be that guy, okay? But I'm tired of being asked about it. I'm tired of it. People like trying to make me. This reminds me when Lana Del Rey hit. By the way, I like Lana Del Rey. But when Lana Del Rey hit, there was all this talk about, can she perform live? And that was everything on the internet was like, can she perform live? Is she just a studio artist? And I remember like the same level of aggravation where it's like, I am so disinterested in this whole topic. I'm resenting the fact that the media, the internet, the algorithm is making me, trying to force me to care, trying to force me to take a position. This is my position video on AI generated images. I don't care. I'm not interested. If you're into it, cool. If you're selling that stuff or you're putting it in competitions, you're beating out real artists with this shit that basically you commissioned from a robot, fuck you. Okay, that's it. That's all I have to say, all right? That's it. Let's see if there's, I'm gonna go through the chat real quick and see if there's anything to highlight, and then we'll let a guest in. Let's see here. I shared a Vice article on my page, and part of why I decided I wanted to talk about this is people have been sending it to me. I posted it, and I think a lot of people maybe assumed by reading it, because I posted it with no comment. I think all I posted was like, I can't wait till this fad is over. I think that's all. But I think people read it and assumed that I was as upset and concerned and saying this is the end of art as like some of the people that they were talking to in the article, which I'm not. I think I'm fairly middle of the path here. I don't like it, and mostly leaning toward disinterest. I do have some concerns. I have concerns about people passing off basically counterfeit work. And I have concerns about people somehow branding themselves an artist when they didn't do anything. That's like a stolen valor thing for me. And it reminds me of a conversation I had with a good friend of mine, Jesse. I don't know if Jesse watches, but I remember years ago we were talking about the use of sampling. The sampling conversation has, like in that Venn diagram, there's a little bit of overlap with AI generated imagery. But he was talking about how he had read a thing and he had come to believe that like sampling was the beginning of the end of real, legitimate, serious art. Because it marked the transition from creating to selection. That when you're sampling now, and therefore now the art is my taste in selecting. That is where the art is just, it's very, and I hate to be like, I'm going to sound like some stoner in a dorm room, but it's very much like a capitalist consumer culture kind of approach to art, where basically the person who makes a mixtape is just as much an artist as the people who are making the songs on that mixtape, where somehow the selection of things in itself some sort of expression. And AI generated imagery is a little bit like that, but I feel like it's even one step more removed, because you're not even engaged in the selection. I think it would be more comparable to the sampling thing if you were picking the images you wanted this program to somehow merge. But you're not even doing that. You really are every dipshit client I've ever worked for who comes to you and says, like, I was thinking, like, like we're a carpentry business. I think we want a beaver in our logo, and like, can you make it wearing like a sombrero? That's all you're doing. That's your art. You coming up with an idea. And again, you see how I'm sorry. That's so what? And then it spits out a thing at you, and it's like sort of interesting. Okay. Anyway, I'm done. I can't. That's I don't know if any of that even. I should have written it out probably beforehand. I could have organized my thoughts. It could have been more eloquent. But again, due to my crippling boredom with it, I can't be bothered. That's my hot take on AI generated imagery. Stop sending me the articles. I don't care. Like I did. Anyway. Okay. Let's see here. I don't know, Frank. I don't know. Some people might have been triggered. Let's see here. Let's see here. Perhaps. I think the main reason I'm less worried about AI art's going to take over, at least at this stage, is it doesn't seem sophisticated enough. And I know from working with clients, and should be a universal, they're always going to have very specific input. And then let's forget it, there's revisions, So like, good luck if you're not really an artist and you do this AI generated thing and they say, that's great. Can you make them a little skinnier? Can you add, like, I think I want a heavier outline. Like, the jig is up. Like, you can't, because so I don't know. I mean, someday will it get there? Maybe, probably. Again, now I think this is where environmental collapse is going to save us. But I'm not particularly, to me, again, outsourcing is the thing that's killing freelance art. It's killing it. And it's killing, just in my little, moonlighting thing, it's killing indie comics. Like, you see a lot of it. That's also probably part of what's triggering me is if you go into any of these indie comic groups on Facebook, you see some clown with no talent, because he's the idea guy. I got all the ideas. I got the vision. And he's trying to just hire people for a vanity project because he's got the ideas. And as soon as they start quoting reasonable American prices, reasonable West prices, It's like, it's just crazy. You're a nobody. You're not a name. I'm not going to pay that. And so what does he do? He finds someone overseas that he can pay, 25 bucks for a cover. Like that is a threat right now. This could be a threat later. Could be. It's not a threat right now. Right now, the house is on fire with that shit, in my opinion. I agree. Jim Lujan is true. He's a gentleman and a scholar. We've got another top 5 in the works, by the way. I don't know if the topic is 100% set yet, but he told me we're alternating with our topic picks. He's picking the topic for next time, the top 5 category. And it's going to be a fun, little random one. It'll be a nice space to do these big ones of like movies, albums. Now this will be sort of like a very specific kind of fun one. Yeah, and that, by the way, just to show that I'm not a total, anti-technology, we should all be living in a log cabin and drinking well water thing. That stuff I've grown out of. I'm both. Okay. And I spent most of my life as a traditional artist. And like the digital art isn't a real thing. It's like I'm so exhausted by that. That's another thing. I'm not going to name names. I don't want to call anybody out. But there's one person I know who I've heard talk about like, I don't like digital art. I don't like that. It looks too clean. It's not. Yeah. And now they're fully in the tank for the AI generated imagery, apparently. And I don't. Nothing drives me more crazy than realizing like you're coming up with justifications for your positions after the fact rather than operating from some kind of comprehensible framework. That any kind of like logical position, like that's when it's like, oh, okay, you just have feelings and now you're trying to argue the point after the fact. It doesn't matter if they don't fit. Let's see here. That's right. I haven't. Oh, I'm working. I'm working up an attitude about AI generated imagery. Let's see here. No, I have it all signed. I just haven't submitted it to the court yet. Narcissist. Yeah, that's me. Nice. Well, water is yucky. I agree. Yeah. All right. Let's bring in some guests. Enough from me. I'm going to bring in some people and mess with my page while they rant about, I don't know what they'll talk about. But so we got 2 guests here today. We've got the one and only Cory Kerr, who I know he's the counterpoint. He loves AI generated. He thinks it's great.
It's the best thing. I'm glad it's finally here.
Finally here. Finally, you don't have to deal with it. One less thing to deal with an actual human being about. Thank God. Okay. And then we also have Ronnie Gunter here.
What's up? How's it going?
How's it going? I'm sorry I made you wait a little bit. Ronnie was here right at the beginning, and I messaged him.
I was.
I want to get this out of the way, and I don't want to make anyone co-sign. I don't want this poor thing where like I'm saying this and I'm saying this and someone's like, I don't agree with that at all, and now I feel like everyone's gonna think I agree. Anyway, how you doing, guys?
I'm all right.
Good.
Yeah, good. It's hard to stay away from this topic.
It's hard to stay away. Well, I tried for so long, and then like I said, I shot myself in the foot by sharing that Vice article. Where then it really, like, I had people asking, like, messaging me on Instagram, messaging me on Facebook, commenting on the thing, saying things, like, assuming how I felt about this in ways that I thought was incorrect. I just couldn't. I was like, okay, I finally have to do this.
I haven't had a single person ask me what I think about any of this.
I suspect. First of all, are you being sarcastic?
No, I'm not. No,
I suspect they know exactly where you probably fall on it. That's my That's probably why no one's
If you watch enough of his videos, you know he does not like the topic.
Yeah, but this is it would be weird. Actually, it would be kind of shocking if it was like, no, I think this is great and really interesting. It's like
I'm actually going to release a series of NFTs based on AI art.
Let's combine all the bullshit, all the modern bullshit into one monstrous NFT associated AI generated imagery.
And then he's going to sell it on Fiverr.
Yeah, I'm going to sell it on Fiverr, and I'm going to do a rug pull immediately. I'm going to tell everybody that I'm going to do a rug pull.
Yes.
And then just be like, what did you think I was doing? I told you what I was doing. Yeah.
You can purchase it with crypto. It's going to be amazing. I can't wait. I'm excited for you and your new career.
And then I'm going to go on KDP and flood the market with AI written and AI drawn comics.
Now that's another good example that got brought up in the chat last night, and that's one thing that had not occurred to me. That where initially I was like, I don't see this really being a factor. I hadn't thought about that, and that could potentially be a mess, a real mess of people selling. Because I was offended just by people, like I said, on Society 6 or whatever, selling stuff made with this. It never occurred to me like, oh no, you could go really big and get a lot of eyes on this, and no one would know the difference. No one would care.
Yeah. Well, think about this. Like we have friends that make actual things that go on KDP, right? Mm-hmm. Like they spend weeks or months creating, real stuff. There's real value. There's a human thinking about those decisions and making those decisions.
Yeah.
Before AI art was a thing, that space is dominated by people who are putting out like 100 books a day because they have a template that just puts lines down or grids or page numbers, and then they put a cover based off of something they got off of Unsplash or Fiverr, and that's it. And so, like the people who are creating things that actually would add value are never seen because of the glut of garbage that's in there. You give those tools a tool that helps them speed that process up, it's not going to get better.
No, that's true. Yeah, totally.
So
totally. And it's bad enough that some people might lose an opportunity, lose a job because of it. Like that in and of itself is bad. But I do feel, and maybe this is the more humanities side of me, I do feel that I want to focus on the more fundamental objection of that this has no value, and that art actually made by a person has some value. And I know that becomes a more fuzzy, esoteric conversation, but I think that's why it's hard for me. I appreciate that you can think down that path because it's valuable and it's more practical. I think the reason it's hard for me to go there is because I have this like almost a fundamental objection to the premise. And I can't even get past, it's like, I'm offended by the concept, and therefore I can't allow myself to really think down the road with it. So.
And I don't know. I see this as one of the things that I'm confused about in life as an adult is all the people that you would expect to understand the warnings of fantasy, sci-fi, comic books, and other types of things are the ones creating the seeds of our own destruction. Like all of the people that like the nerds and the like Uber programmers and the basement dwellers and the D&D players that have grown up and are now our age programming all of this stuff. It's like Boston Dynamics. What are you doing?
You should know better than anyone. Right.
Exactly.
And forgive me for this half second of a vaguely political thing, but that was sort of my reaction when Trump was on his ascendancy and was popular with a lot of evangelicals. I was like, if anyone should understand Dancing with the Devil or A Devil's Bargain, like it should be you guys. Like it's crazy to like you most of all should be the ones waving your arms around saying like, no, this isn't worth it. But
Yeah.
yeah, I don't. It's the same. To me, it's kind of the same thing. It's like you are the guys. You are the guys that worry about Judgment Day. You are the guys that.
Right. And so I mean, like environmental concerns. I mean, there are articles now that are saying that there's so much of the glaciers and the ice caps are melting that it might throw the planet off its axis and like rotate differently, right?
Yes. Yeah.
And yet we're still heading in that direction. We still pretend like what we're doing right now is okay, you know, or whatever. And then it's the same thing. Like okay. And I brought this up. I'll bring this up because I think this is my best argument here is everyone in tech wants you to believe that this is inevitable. Like this is going to happen no matter what we do. And so fighting against it is stupid and it just makes you a troglodyte and you're going to be caught with your pants down if you don't adopt early, because then the people who do adopt early are going to be better at the thing than whatever. Mm-hmm. The argue of inevitability is extremely effective and total gaslighting. Like it is a lie that is so pernicious that I think people who would do something about it buy into that lie, and you know they make you feel like you know you're defending the buggy whip in a land full of Ford Model Ts, right? But years ago, we figured out how to clone a living thing. Scottish scientists cloned Dolly the sheep, and the world lost its mind.
Yes.
And everybody was like, absolutely not. This is not okay. What are you doing? You're playing God. You're toying. Like, and everyone sounded like me. Everybody was like, what is the logical conclusion of this? What's the rational extrapolation of this type of technology? And
so what happened, do you think? Did we just get numb to these constant, like every year there's this new like framework exploding development and there's an exhaustion, or is it too abstract? Like there's something more tangible about you can clone an animal. There's something more visceral about that?
I think it's more insidious than that. I do think there is something. Okay, so we have a knee-jerk reaction to things that are too far away from what we're comfortable with, right? And so going from like nothing to Dolly the sheep, that was like everyone's knee-jerk reaction was to shut it down, right?
Yeah.
And if the people of 1998 were subjected to the privacy invasion of the people of 2022, they would freak out. So it's a boiling frog situation.
Yeah.
The other thing is because I mean, look at what's going on. Zuckerberg just got on Joe Rogan and talked for 3 hours about how he and Ray-Bans got together and made these cool glasses. Yeah. But we're all old enough to remember when Google Glass did the same thing, and everybody was like, this is a massive privacy invasion. People are walking around recording me. This is not okay. And now everybody's like, oh, cool. They look like Wayfarers.
Yeah. And all Rogan, I mean, I didn't watch the whole thing, but the only bits I saw, all Rogan was asking about it was like, you know, censoring conservative voices. And it's like, is that really the most important thing? Like, you've got Zuckerberg in the chair here.
Well, he did actually point out, because I didn't watch, I haven't made it all the way through. I don't have like a 3-hour block of time where I can sit down and.
I know, it's hard. Yeah.
I've been picking it up 20 minutes at a time. Yeah. He did actually point out, and I rewound this and recorded it because I may just play back bits of it on my YouTube channel. Uh-huh. But he said, you know, so Zuckerberg he keeps talking about how much better meetings are going to be. I think his entire
I did see that. Yeah.
His entire viewpoint is I just want meetings to suck less. And like, so he's developing like humanity ending technology, like perception bending technology, like just so that he's not as bored at work. I literally think that's his motivation.
And I did like that Rogan called out, it's like, so you want people even more distracted, less connected, more disengaged from the here and now, the person sitting across from them at a table. Like that sounds horrible. And what was interesting, of course, because it's all these guys, Zuckerberg seemed to be at a loss at that reaction. because they're all taken with the idea of like, but it's a neat idea.
Right.
You know, they're not, it doesn't matter that this idea might be arsenic.
They're all the geneticists in Jurassic Park. Every single one of them is a
Yeah.
geneticist in Jurassic
Pretty
Park.
much.
He's wondering if they can do it, not if they should.
Right.
But his response to that was, what did he say? He didn't even answer the question, because Rogan was like, hey, isn't that going to, like, because he was describing a situation where you're sitting there and you're eating dinner with somebody, and on your glasses pops up a little notification, and you can respond by flexing muscles in your wrist.
Yes.
So that nobody even knows that you're texting while they're talking to you. And long story short, long story short, like, Rogan was like, hey, that seems like even more distracting. Like, I don't even know that you're not paying attention anymore. Right. And his response to that wasn't to even address it. It was to argue that people keep calling physical space reality and digital space is something other than reality. And my argument is that digital and physical are both reality. Yes, Jim, I was talking to Jim on the phone the other day, like a 97-year-old man. And we had an actual audible phone call. And anyway, Jim needs a password app and a TFA. I'm going to do a video on what everybody needs. Okay.
That'd be good, actually. That'd be
password app. Please do at least those two things. VPN is, an additional security that I don't use, but like TFA and password app, and send me your social security and, bank account. Just give me your login to your bank account. Let's just do it that way.
Just hand everything over. Give him powers of attorney. Like, he'll take care of everything. Like Britney Spears, it'll be easy.
Right. Yeah. I would like everyone with any money at all to be in a conservatorship.
Yeah.
Could you imagine the hassle? No. Anyway, so he's like, his belief system is that digital and physical are all real in the same way that like eating a physical apple is real. And so, and here's my problem. I don't care. That's fine. He can think that. Yeah. But in the 80s, we passed a law that stopped and changed how we view monopolies. And since then, in every sector of society that America has any interest in, we have huge, giant monopolies.
Yeah.
And that's the problem, is that somebody like, the CEO of Google or the owner of Facebook or Meta or whatever it's called now, or, the guy that runs, whatever, like all of these things wouldn't be that big of a deal because they wouldn't have more money than like several countries in Europe combined. Yeah. And like when a total free market capitalist is given zero regulation because the regulators are owned by them, they're in their pocket, there's the revolving door of the people that leave tech to go in, like the guy, and we just saw this happen. Like it's the foxes are running the hen house, where a guy leaves a giant telecom to go in and destroy net neutrality, even though like the vast majority of the public freaked out and told him that they shouldn't do it. And he immediately left and got on the board of another tech company after that. He even was so blatant as to make a meme video mocking the public. He did a dance about how excited he was to destroy neutrality on the internet.
Yeah.
The regulators are and that is only possible because of a number of things, but the main thing is that we are not destroying the monopolies like we should. No, if you even if you're like me and you think that competition is good, and you think that the marketplaces are a good way to regulate pricing, and that there's stuff like that, that doesn't work. Like, we don't live in a capitalist society today when you have these giants that are able to squash anyone that comes and threatens their gold.
Yeah.
That's not a capitalist society. That is
Right.
just, we have anointed oligarchs and we let them run wild. They own senators and they own regulators. And the difference is between Dolly the sheep and everything that's going on in the invasion of our privacy and the destruction of our humanity, is that the Scottish scientists were underfunded compared
They
to.
didn't have lobbyists.
They
Yeah,
didn't
I
have
mean,
lobbyists.
yeah.
They didn't have congressmen,
but
and
I
they
also
couldn't.
think
They
something
couldn't.
has gotten worse because think about the hole in the ozone layer.
Yeah.
Like during that, like I think you're old enough to remember when that was the panic, and all these laws were enacted, and like there were major changes made to get on top of this thing. Could that happen today? It feels like no. So were they not as able to mobilize back then? Did they learn from that? Did like the moneyed interests realize like, oh, like this is a real pain in the ass. Next time this is coming down the pike, we need to,
Well, that's part of the monopolies that are going on. Back when that was happening, you had a more fractured and more highly competitive media environment. And now those have conglomerated under 2 or 3 people. Basically, 3 people own all of the messaging that we hear from any source.
Right.
And one of those leans very right, and one of those leans very left.
Yeah.
And then the other ones are on the digital side of things. And so
and the game is always like, if whichever side it is, if they're taking this position now, we must take the opposite.
Right.
Know? And then you confuse enough people where they're like, I don't know. That's when you start getting this apathetic response of, they're all liars. Who knows? There's no way to know. Who knows what you're being told? And some level that's maybe a rational reaction, but the real implications of that is total inaction on your part as a citizen.
Right. And I mean, I don't know. I just remember, like, there's a couple of cartoons that stand out in my mind that like make this point really well. And one of them is like The Simpsons, which I don't know, isn't that funny anymore?
Yeah.
And it's whatever. But back in the day, when I was younger and stupider, it was great.
Yeah. Right.
But 2 aliens come to like take over the Earth, and they do that by running for office. And so one runs as a Democrat and one runs as a Republican. And then they're both unmasked as these aliens that are going to dominate the Earth.
Right.
And everybody's like, well, we'll just vote for a third party. And one of them goes, sure, throw your vote away. And then they voted for one of them, and then they dominated. It's like, it's like the arguments that people, and I'm not advocating for third parties necessarily, because, but like,
I am at the local level. I think I voted for, this goes way back, I voted for Nader over Gore or Bush. Like, I've done I've thrown my vote away a few times. And I think I've come, especially younger people might feel differently. I've come to feel that you can't aim for the sky with this third party stuff. Until we get ranked choice voting, that's a whole different ballgame. And that would be my big, like, why don't we try pushing toward that? I think you need to start in the local level and go up. I think one mistake third parties have made, in my opinion, first of all, terrible candidates. Like, I can't remember the guy who was the weed guy who didn't know where Aleppo was? Johnson? I think it was Gary Johnson or something. I don't know. Bullshit candidates. But I think more importantly, they're just swinging for the fence. It's like, we got to get a green or a third party, whatever, some third party president in there. And that's never, to me, maybe I'm an old man or something. It's never going to happen. Like, with the Electoral College and all that, like, it's not even a thing. Start with your mayor, maybe then work up to governor. You got to start, like, get a senators, congress people, all that. Like, then, like, maybe now you've got something going. But just to say, like, let's skip all that. Let's get a president in there. Good luck. Good luck. I tried. Man.
Well, yeah. And here's, I don't know. Maybe this
I would
is
say
my,
the same thing for age too. I mean, we always complain about, we got to put someone in the office that's a lot younger. Where even though the youngest you could vote, I mean, to become president is 35, we're never going to see someone that young be a president because all there ever is usually just old guys. And we're used to that. And just like with the presidency, just like you were saying with the independent party, everything has to be cliques and socialized. In high school, you have your jocks, you have your nerds and everything. And we grow up and we think, oh, we're adults. No, we still have to label everything because if you don't believe in labels, then you're weird and you're strange to the world.
Right. Well, and the old people are the ones who have made all those connections and networks and alliances.
Yeah.
Got all the. But I should also never say never. When I say like a 35-year-old's never going to win the presidency, I remember, when they were asking Colin Powell to run for president. This would have been sometime in the mid to late 90s, maybe? I don't remember exactly when. Colin Powell, if you're not familiar, he's I think he was Army. He was a general. He was very big in the Desert Storm thing, and he's a black man. And I remember them saying he should run, and I just remember thinking, like, never happened. America's not voting for a black president. And then just a few years later, Barack Obama. So I don't know. Things change, but and I also remember when I famously was telling especially my liberal and progressive friends when Trump was running, like, don't worry about it. Never happened. There's no chance. Like, it's just impossible. It's not even serious. And then, like, the grab him by the, video came out, like, of him on the bus. I was like, it's over. There you go. It's done. It's done. And wrong again. So.
Okay. Before we go down the road on the oligarchy more.
Yes.
Squatchy's got a comment. I hate everyone in politics. That's my take on it. Is like because of the system that we have, the easily manipulated puppet garbage rises to the top. That's the system that we've got right now. We no longer live in a representative republic. We live in some sort of hegemony of powers that put forth people that they can own. So anyway, but I want to say this.
There has definitely not been enough fancy whites in American history. If only we had more fancy whites running the show.
It's true. Okay, so I just want to say this, and then I'll bounce because I want to give everybody else a chance to talk. The issue that I have with AI art.
Yeah. Oh, that's right. Hey, we're talking about AI generated imagery today, folks. I forgot.
Okay, the issue that I have with AI art is twofold. One is something that Scott Circlin said to me about NFTs that I think is really interesting. Nobody started freaking out about it until artists got involved.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Somehow it wasn't okay for artists to make money, but it was okay for everybody else. Right. Nobody was freaking out when video games got involved. Nobody was freaking out when social media got involved. It was just when the artists got involved that everybody lost their mind. There's something about that society like cares about.
Yeah.
And I just think if they're willing to go after artists, which should be the last thing that they go after, right? Like nobody freaked out when they were going after the truck drivers. Nobody freaked out when they're like long haul trucking is 25% of American male workforce.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
And we are currently automating that, and no one cares.
No, and that actually, I would have been like you with that. I was sounding the alarm with that. It's like, this is a terrible, terrible idea. The idea of automating that is just, look, I see there's rational reasons. There's safety reasons, but what are you doing with all these people you've just unemployed?
Right.
Well, that's the same thing. Domino's, if I'm not mistaken, has AI vehicles to deliver pizza.
Yeah. I mean, AI driving is, I know people that are in that space, and it's here, and we're just kind of waiting for laws to catch up to it. But I mean, like on many college campuses today, food is delivered via robot. and that's common. But here's so there's that side of it, right? If they're willing to come after the artists, there is no job that cannot be automated. And so we are going to have a system in place soon, whether that's 10 years or 50 years, I don't know, but a system in place very soon where almost no one is adding any value to the marketplace because it can be done more efficiently by a software program or by a robot.
So you feel 10 to 15 years?
I mean, I don't know. But I mean, you look at...
I think, like, to me, it's going to... You know what's going to be tough about this is there's going to be a lot of things where people, I think there's going to be jobs people are going to be excited about AI doing it. And I think there's going to be some jobs where there's a strong argument to be made that there'll be resistance. For example, if you could have a robot do your appendectomy, how would you feel about that? Now, to me, it's like, well, you know, medical mistakes happen. Medical mistakes kill people a lot. Like, if you look at the numbers, it's a little shocking. Something like that, like if I could have that where I don't have to worry about how much sleep the doctor got the night before. I don't have to worry about if he had a fight with his wife in the morning or a fight with, you know, his husband or whatever the situation is. I don't have to worry about whether everything was cleaned and sterilized right. Like, if I know this is a thing where it's going to go exactly one way. I know some people will say, like, no, you need a human in there to feel the risk of, like, this is a human being and I don't want to fuck this up. But on the other hand, when you look at the stats, one of the highest rates of sociopathy among professions is surgeons. Like, these people don't give a shit. Like, that's how they can do their job.
Right.
You don't want someone paralyzed with, like, the existential cry, like, oh my God, this person's life is in my hands. They have a family. They have, like, you know, you can't have them. You need them doing their job. So in that sense, like, you could see some people saying, no, I'd rather have the computer do my brain surgery.
Okay, but you just mentioned a bunch of things that you don't have to worry about. So let's talk about how the current model of generating, there are two current models of how to generate AI. Okay. One is brute force. That's what AI art is doing, is brute force, right? Brute force is where, like, I can watch my daughter who's 1.5, right? She can see a species of cat that she's never seen before and recognizes it as a cat, because humans don't learn the same way that AI does. The way AI does is you look at hundreds of thousands of things and you say yes or no on a series of things, and you begin identifying what of that thing makes it a cat and not a rat or
it's like logarithmic, basically. It's starting to see, like, the connections. Right?
It's pattern recognition, right? It's a brute force.
It's what you're doing when you're saying mark all the streetlights in a are you a robot thing. You're helping some AI bot somewhere understand streetlights. Or when you're saying, like, all the bicycles, like, you're helping it understand bicycles by showing it more examples of bicycles.
Yeah. So that's one way of doing it. Brute force. It is an extremely ineffective and labor-intensive way to train AI. We went down that road because that was what was deemed the most effective at the time based on the technology about 15 years ago. And that's just what we've been doing since then. It's not terribly effective for a number of reasons. If early on it branches in a slightly wrong choice, like it's not a black or white situation, but it gets something like 60% correct instead of 90% correct, that can diverge it on a path that would not be anticipated for quite a long time, and could be problematic. And so let's say you have a surgeon who is a person and you have a surgeon who is a robotic AI driven thing. If you come across, and for some reason you've got some genetic thing where your organ looks slightly different and it wasn't part of the brute force learning of that thing, it will kill you. Right. It will immediately kill you. I mean, it won't know what to do, right? And
it'll get stuck. Yeah.
And you only have to look at facial recognition software to know that right now having a robot do surgery is bad, because facial recognition software that's being used by police forces is legitimately racist. It misidentifies black faces significantly more.
Oh, all the time. Yeah.
all the time. It's like very, very problematic. And that's
because most of the examples it's gotten were not that. And that's, I mean, and that's something that came up. This is obviously sort of an area of interest to me because of my day job. That came up when they were testing, it never was actually put into practice, but they were testing AI judges basically for sentencing.
Mm-hmm.
And they found the hope, they were recognizing the problem of disparate sentencing, disparate treatment with defendants.
Right.
Mostly on race, on the basis of race. And
which statistically is a huge problem because
huge problem. Absolutely is a problem that needs to be addressed. So the thought was like, look, if we AI this shit, like then like that'll get us away from any kind of weird biases or racism or whatever's going on in this mess. But what people don't recognize, and then all the breathless news reports, all the breathless clickbait articles were, you know, AI sentencing just as racist as a real judge, you know, like, and what they're missing, like if you understand how these things work, it's like, well, of course, because the way you're teaching it how to do its job is to pass a bunch of sentencing in front of it. So like, here's a case, here's a case, here's a case. And it's learning. It's like that old weed commercial about where did you learn to do this? Like the dad's shaking a box of weed in front of his son. And it's like, I learned it by watching you, all right? Like that's what the AI is doing. I learned it by watching you. Like this is how you sentence, right? Am I good? Am I doing it right? Like this is how you do it. It's the same thing with, you can tell if it's like, oh, it has trouble with black faces. Because you didn't train it on black faces. You must have trained it in fucking London or something, you know, or Berlin, you know.
By definition, the word minority means that there's less of that person. That type of person.
Which becomes a problem when you're looking at the criminal justice system, where minorities are now being overrepresented. And for you, that's 5 other live streams trying to talk about that, but it's overrepresented. So now you've trained it with one kind of assumed breakdown. But the reality on the ground of what it's seeing is very different. Like, no, of course that's going to be a shit show. That's not going to work.
Okay, so that's one way the AI is created. The other way that is there's a bunch of different ways, but these are the 2 main ways. The second way is
real quick. Swatch, I think it was like one of those cigar boxes. It's like, where did you learn it? Yeah, it was like
he pulled it out from his bed and it was a really nice, like varnished box.
Yeah, it was like a fancy box. Yeah, I that's how I remember it anyway. Maybe it's our is it the Mandela effect or whatever, like the whatever.
Right.
But I remember it being, it wasn't like a joint, it wasn't like a roach.
I don't think they would have been allowed to show that.
Yeah, no, it was like
especially during that time. In
the 90s, they're not going to show like a dime bag of weed.
Right.
So the second way that they're doing it is even more terrifying than the first, because the first is terrifying in its inadequacies. The second is terrifying in that most of the time when they do this, the AI starts doing things so concerning that their creators have to kill it before it gets weird.
Yeah.
And this is where they get 2 AI or more than 2, but usually it's 2. And they lie to each other. They basically play 3 truths and a lie, right?
Yeah.
They try to get better at lying, and so it's like a truth recognition algorithm. And so this is where deep fakes came from, and this is where like all of the stuff that we're like dealing with now, like.
Well, I think that Lambda, that chatbot at Google in the Google lab, that the guy was like, oh, it's sentient. I went down that. I don't think it is, but like that's a collective of bots sort of relating to each other. It's like it's not a singular voice, so to speak.
Right. And Facebook had a similar one a few years back where they were sending conversations back and forth, and they invented their own language so that was more efficient than English. And so then the programmers the software engineers got concerned because they're like, we don't know what they're telling each other now. So they can be saying anything. You know what I mean?
Right.
So like, it's
great
just
sci-fi plot, by the way. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. And so, because I mean, if you think about it, it's like, okay, one's going to lie to the other one and tell the truth to the other one. and the one is going to try to depict whether this is true or whether it's not true, and they make requests of each other. So there's like, and this is basically, it's database calls, right? I want a thing, give me this thing. It's like MySQL, what do they call that, a cron job or whatever. It's like that, except it's initiated by the software and not by a person. Like if I set up a cron job, I'm going to go in and say, every Tuesday at 4 p.m., go pull this information. And if it says this, do this. If it says that, do that. Right. That's basic. The internet is run on database calls and cron jobs.
Right.
But if the AI are creating those requests and they've created a language where we don't understand that, and they have all of the data that they have on, this is pre-Cambridge Analytica, they have all of the data that they have on most of the world.
Yeah.
That is terrifying. And so
you're setting up, like the board is set for things to go wrong.
I think the scariest villain in the MCU is the most underexplained villain, and it's Ultron. Ultron is the existential threat that we have in humanity, because he was given an objective, peace on Earth or peace in our time, right? And then identified that there would be peace if nothing was alive anymore. Then it would be very peaceful, right? And that's the type of thing, is it's like, I don't think anybody at Facebook is necessarily evil or trying to destroy humanity. I think they're going for growth and they're going for engagement. And if you're going for growth and engagement, then you make these little decisions that are going to help the algorithm growth or engage. Then you end up with 13-year-old girls being taught how to be bulimics because they're engaging a whole lot more.
Well, and my impression is
social contagion. Or you're getting young white males that are being radicalized into craziness because they sure are a lot more engaged and they're spending a lot more time on the platform, and it's a social contagion.
They sure are. Well, or even in like my little corner of it, I've engaged with enough comic stuff where I get suggested comic pages all the time. And what I really hate about it is I feel like 90% of it, it's like a weird thing that's presented in a way just to make people argue. Like looking through, like trying to see the matrix. Like, what does this thing really represent? It's just garbage to start a fight. Like that's all it is, between like nerds on the internet about whatever, about She-Hulk, about Star Wars, about, like whatever, Game of Thrones. Like it's all just like a thing to put out there for people to react to and engage in the comments. And that's the thing that rises to the top because people are getting engaged with it. The one thing I would add to, you said, I don't think these Facebook people are evil. I don't think they are either, but what I have noticed is especially when you get to the roots of it, the invention of a lot of these platforms, to me, what they seem to have in common is this, what I would describe as a flatly, purely naive view of how this is going to be used. Like that, a really optimistic, sunny idea of what people are like and what motivates them and the utopia that's going to result from this platform being provided. Which to me, as someone, again, who like spends his day job looking at rape and murder and child abuse all day, it's like, you don't understand people. Like you have your idea of people that you learned in your Harvard class. Like that, I don't know what like you have met like out there. You need to spend some time on the ground. Like you don't understand like what people are going to use this for the worst. Yes, there'll be people will find some connections. Yes, there'll be a hashtag that changes the world for the better. Yes, like some movement will get a little bit of exposure. Yes, we'll understand, empathize with each other a little bit better. Sure, maybe. In addition, yes, people are going to get radicalized. In addition, yes, people are going to be at each other's throats politically. Yes, there's going to be a thing where either like you love Biden or you hate him. And there's nothing in between, like, I mean, it's like, that's where they're not appreciating. Where like even something as simple as Brie Larson, Captain Marvel, a picture of her goes up and now you've got a fight on the internet. Like that's what it's going to be, guys. And the fact that they still don't get it, the fact that they still make stuff like this.
Oh no, they get it.
Optimistically thinking, well, and maybe now it is cynical. Maybe at first they were a little starry-eyed.
See, I think you're giving them the benefit of the doubt, because I think everything that you're seeing is PR.
Maybe.
Because if you look at
the scenes, it was like, this is going to be the world's casino and they're all going to go crazy pulling the slot machine.
Yeah, if you look at the public statements of like the top upper echelon of the 5 biggest tech companies, it matches the expected zeitgeist of good and changes with that zeitgeist. They are saying what they need to say to do what they want to do. And so when I say they're not evil, I don't take that as I think they're good, moral, and ethical. I just don't think they're actively trying to destroy society.
No, I agree.
What I think is, I think they're nihilists that don't care if they destroy society. I don't think that's their intention. I just think they don't care.
That is probably where I have to be a little hopeful that maybe it's just it's impossible for their mind to go there, which is another thing from Day Job. Just without getting into details, I'll tell you the story off air sometime. I worked a child abuse case. It was one of the worst I've ever seen. That person, it was a hung jury because one juror could not conceive, like, there's no way someone could do this to their own kid.
Oh, wow.
Like, so to me, like, that is my framework I'm operating with, where there are people out there that are, bless their hearts, like that sheltered and don't appreciate the diversity of humanity and how, yes, there are really great, wonderful people out there. And yes, most people are at least fine, but there are these other people that you need to budget for. You need to account for. It's also why I can't go down the path of, like, you know, these weird libertarian anarchist conversations. It's like, I'm happy you've had such a charmed life, but you don't, you know, like, that's just, you only need a couple of these people to make the whole machine break down. And there are at least a couple of those people out there. Right. And I want to believe that, like, people who founded Twitter, people who founded Facebook, they've never met some of these. It's never occurred to them the way this could be used, you know. Now
you want to believe that, because that is a more placating story than that there are people that don't care if they destroy humanity, or worse, their view of what humanity should be is like a transhumanist movement to where they're actually okay with and fine with neural implants that feed things, because that's a more effective interface than a phone screen.
Or they're just passing the responsibility. They're like, hey, look, I just made the slot machine. If you can't control yourself, I mean, that's your problem. Go join Gamblers Anonymous. You know, like, I think there's a little bit of that. It's like, look, if you're sitting endlessly scrolling until you feel something, like, I don't know, see a therapist. That's not my problem that I built the fucking thing. You know, like, I mean, I don't know.
I mean, if you, Paul Pate says he really disagrees. I wonder if he's disagreeing to what we're saying or what's going on in the chat.
Maybe, I don't know. It could even be about Brie Larson. No, I have no problem. She seems like, you know what she seems like to me, and this kind of goes back to, like, you should know better than anyone when we're talking about the geeks in the room who should anticipate these issues, or like the evangelicals in the tank for Trump. To me, Brie Larson, when I see her interviewed, she seems like a somewhat awkward homeschooled woman, which she is. And you fucking comic nerds should be more forgiving than anyone. You know, like, it's weird. Like, so she spoke something a little clunkily, and you're going to burn her for the rest of her life? Shame on you. You know, like, you're just as bad. I've talked to you people. You're twice as bad. Give her a break. Like, I
don't even know or care. Like,
I don't. And as far as Captain Marvel, the movie goes, it's just as mediocre as any of the others. And all the problems with that movie had nothing to do with her. That script was trash.
Yeah, I agree.
Anyway,
most definitely.
Okay, so my final thing, and then I'll leave, because I want to hear Ronnie weigh in.
Yes, we got to get Ronnie.
I've been dominating the conversation.
I think Paul's being silly. Paul just disagrees.
Just in general.
There's just a blanket disagreeal.
That's fine. I can respect that.
Yeah.
When we are talking about things that have the potential to do massive amounts of destruction.
She's awkward, Squatch. She's awkward.
Oh, that's a stupid thing to say.
Okay, sorry. Now, I'm sorry.
So when we're talking about massive amounts of destruction as a possibility, or even worse, and what is actually happening, actual proven destruction to society, like just the two examples I gave, like young men under the age of 25 of all races are being significantly radicalized at a faster rate than almost any group, and most of it is directly related to what they're being fed in the algorithm.
Yeah.
Young women in their adolescent age are being mentally and emotionally destroyed, and it's proven. There's no doubt about that. Let's say that those two things weren't even on the table. There's general things where specific platforms like Instagram have been proven to cause anxiety. Like it causes anxiety. If you look at when the iPhone was released, there was an immediate, directly corollary spike in depression and anxiety worldwide where the iPhone was available. And it has spiked and continued to go up. If that were anything else, like if we decided that like let's say it was like food poisoning, and it's like there's this really popular food that everybody is buying, or a really popular ingredient that everybody's putting in something, and there is a direct and immediate physical reaction that doesn't just happen to poor people, but it happens to rich people too. Right. We would immediately regulate that thing.
Yes.
We would immediately regulate that thing. This is a little bit more of an existential threat, and it's a little bit less direct, but the messaging around it is more of this inevitability and more of, well, it's your fault, not my fault. I just created a tool. It doesn't matter if you use that tool to hurt yourself. But we're not regulating it. And I don't like regulation, but I do like regulation when there are direct harm to society. Like if somebody, I love free market, but I like a regulated free market, a slightly regulated free market. For example, if you go off of free market capitalism and you go off of the invisible guiding hand of self-interest, then if I'm selling something to Ronnie and Ronnie likes the thing that I'm selling it to or selling, and we agree on a price and I'm making it at a good quality, that's great. That works just fine. That regulates the price. It regulates the quantity. It regulates the speed of production. It regulates all kinds of things. But in my production, if I'm also dumping toxic waste into Gary's drinking water, but Gary isn't one of my clients, that's called an externality and has no effect on me as a seller or producer of that thing.
Especially like if I was never even going to be in your market. Like
right. If it was never possible for you to be in my market, then I don't care.
Right.
And so that's what's happening here, because everybody always forgets that the users of social media and the users of these technologies are not the customer. And so it can negatively impact us because it doesn't matter, because the advertisers and the people that are buying our data, they're the customers, and they are not negatively impacted by the externality of me being destroyed as a person. In fact, I don't even think that we are the product that's being sold anymore. We are the mountain that's being strip mined. And so the destruction of my individuality is the product.
Yeah.
And it has no negative impact to the consumer supplier relationship. And so that's when regulation needs to happen. And that's my problem with AI, is it has the potential, if it is totally unregulated, to completely destroy the planet, to destroy all of humanity and to change humanity into something that isn't human. Mm-hmm. And that is something that we should regulate. That is something that we should say, these data scientists and these engineers that are doing these things are doing it for an audience that doesn't care about the destruction, because that's other than in the transactional equation. And so that should be regulated. We should decide, just like Dolly the sheep, that's a step too far. Here are the limits.
Right.
This is what now is legal and illegal in the production of this thing, just like a nuclear weapon. We say, you know what? Nuclear weapons are horrible. They're awful. I like nuclear power. I think it's the cleanest and safest way that we can get energy.
Yeah.
Compared to everything else. And it's got some
I
bad.
wish we were doing more nuclear. I mean, and I understand all the concerns, and they're all valid. But
Sure.
in the goal of getting off carbon, I think that's going to have to be our halfway point. I don't know how you make that transition without bootstrapping with nuclear.
I want to hear what Paul is saying, because he says, Cory, I generally disagree with what you guys are saying. It's a great conversation. Now I'm really interested.
The one thing, this is where I do get a little fatalistic about it, because I agree with everything you just said, but I also feel cynically that the greatest deliberative body in the world, the Senate, is completely incapable of dealing with this in a rational, intelligent way. That would be astonishing if they could do anything meaningful and nuanced, like what this would take to fix. Because I'm going to freely admit, like, I see the problem. I think it needs to be addressed. I have no idea how to fix it. No, I have, it's like some suggestions. I don't know if they're bad ones. Like, but it's a complicated issue. And I think you got to get these guys in the room with you, these people making these things, and try and have very, very smart conversations about, this is the problem we see. How do we still do it where you're doing your thing and you're making money, but we're not causing all this harm? And therefore, how do we translate that into new laws? I just can't picture that happening. Maybe I'm wrong. I would love to be wrong. But Paul, if you would like to, maybe you're content just to listen, but if you would like to say how you disagree, why you disagree, we're not scary. We're not mean. Ban Paul, somebody. Where's my mod? Ban Paul. Kick him out of here.
Well, does he have a link? I'm gonna bow out so you guys can talk, and I'm gonna stop talking so much. But
I appreciate you. I appreciate you coming by.
Yeah, I think the answer to what you're talking about is some sort of regulatory body like the FCC or the FTC, not the Senate.
That's specialized in this.
That's specialized in this, and that has enough resources to be able to do it, and that has kind of a non-compete thing where they can't just golden parachute themselves out after screwing the public.
Yeah. No,
I think that's at least a great first step. Yeah. And you got to give them some kind of comprehensible mission.
Mm-hmm.
Like, this is the goal here, Yeah,
and there should be some checks and balances on them as well,
Yeah, of course. Yeah. Because it does get tricky. I mean, I think the problem is once you put in these guardrails, it like the speech thing gets tricky. So I think that's why everyone's been like, I don't even know how to approach this. But I don't know.
That's a whole nother. Yeah, I'm gonna not say anything about free speech.
I know. I'm sorry. Yes. Okay.
It's a very nuanced issue.
I know it's complicated. Got it.
Because 230 is a sledgehammer when you need like a screwdriver and a hammer and a hacksaw and a skill saw.
Yeah.
But you have one tool.
Yeah.
It's kind of like copyright doesn't really address AI art, but it's the only tool that we have in the toolbox right now.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
But we actually need a full toolbox where copyright is one of those things.
Right. And that will be the first thing that comes to a head. But I have a feeling they won't. I think it's weird. It grosses me out, but I don't know if they'll make much headway with it just because of the precedent of sampling and parody and fair use.
Sampling's been shut down.
Oh,
so there was a court case that shut sampling down, and it didn't happen in a good way. What happened is the record companies started expanding their contracts because there's, again, monopolies where there's only 3 record companies that really matter and
Yeah.
nobody else gets to do anything. And so there's no actual competition because they agree to, like crime bosses and crime families, cooperate with each other. So all 3 of them started to do this at the same time. And the music industry is another example of the result of kind of oligarchy monopolies that are, should be busted up by antitrust. But they started to expand their contracts to include, because it used to be that the artist could license their samples or not, that they could say, sure, everybody's cool to take this or whatever. But then the music labels won a court case, and for a few years they let the artist keep all of the fees and license fees that they got from sampling. And then they expanded it a little further, and now they took all of those things, which inevitably just shut everything down. And so,
maybe it'll be a path similar to that. Where they see, it's weird because I really don't want to go. This would be a whole nother thing, but my understanding is like you're basically image searching through whatever's on the internet. So there's this weird step removed. I think you would have to untangle the threads of what were the source images. And I don't know how possible that is.
Yeah.
But that's also a problem too. The fact that, because it wouldn't be cool for me to go out and just take other people's work and combine it together. And then if someone said, what'd you make this out of? It's like, I don't know. That's not legitimate. Like, you need to be able to show me, like, well, how do I know you even had the rights to any of this?
Yeah. Well, and they're dang it, I'm trying to leave. There's 2.
I know. I'm sorry.
They started with hundreds of thousands of images that are public domain. Yeah. And then they opened up the ability for people to submit their own work. Yes. And everybody started submitting artists that they like, not their own work. Sure. And so they are able to once again say,
I'm suspicious of the public domain thing. I'm suspicious because, like I said, as some tests, I was typing in like recognizable celebrity names. And a lot of these normally, it's very uncommon for that stuff to be just free use. Usually some photographer has the right to that, some magazine, somebody owns that image. It's very rare you're going to find like a photograph of Cindy Crawford or whatever, where it's like you can do whatever you want with this. Somebody has that, okay? But if you type in Brad Pitt, Lady Gaga, whatever, it is Frankensteining an image of them together out of images of them on the internet. You're telling me every one of those is for use? That's remarkable if true. Yeah. I'm skeptical. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I agree. Paul says, I'd love to chat with you sometime. I don't think I can remotely match your eloquence. I could be using all kinds of words incorrectly in this conversation. So I don't know if it's eloquence or ignorance, but
it's all
I am perfectly willing to be
competence for me.
And I am perfectly willing to be wrong. And I'm wrong often. And so I like I don't like debating. I actually hate debating. So having like a normal conversation with somebody that has a different viewpoint, I actually really like that because I could be missing huge things that I agree with, because I have made a fairly drastic and serpentine journey through political views where I used to be, like an Ayn Rand what is that? Objectivist?
Yeah.
Is it?
Objectivist? Is that
objectivist? Yeah. Like I was like a full on, like I think a lot of people in their teens and 20s are.
Right. That's when Ayn Rand hits. Just like grunge. You watch the top 5 album video. I was saying that I got into grunge because I was exactly the right age. Ayn Rand is a little bit like that. Yeah.
But I have since then, I now no longer fall in any party that makes any sense because I believe in nuance. Yeah. And so I'm totally happy to hear where I'm incorrect because I probably am in a lot of ways.
Like I love talking to other people about what they think about things. I hate debating, and especially what passes for debate on the internet and on news shows and stuff these days, which is really just pro wrestling posturing. Like, here's my position, rah, rah, rah. And then the other person, rah, you're an idiot, rah, 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 and they give their other kind of crazy extreme version of it. I mean, that doesn't mean I don't have strong opinions about things, but I'm not blessed with divine knowledge and wisdom. I don't know. This is just what I think. And that was the whole premise today. This is how I react to AI generated imagery.
Oh, okay. Here's something Paul
bad
is
or
saying.
shamed about it. I don't.
Here's something Paul is saying that I agree with and I hope for. The general arc of humanity technology has been super positive. I don't expect that. Hey, just a second, buddy. I don't expect that to change. But the dangers you cite are legit and must be addressed.
I hope that continues to be the case.
And this is where I think I agree with this, but I don't agree with it with a passive public that believes that things are inevitable. And so that's why I'm sounding the alarm, because if people didn't sound the alarm, then we would never have the weekend or the 40-hour work week or child labor laws, or slavery wouldn't have ended. You know what I mean? Like, we used to think that it was okay because it was profitable to take 4-year-olds and have them be chimney sweeps because they fit in the chimneys. And so like people would rent out orphans to chimney sweeps. And that was just a profitable and effective way of doing things until everybody was like, what about human rights? And so, I agree with this statement. And I wouldn't be raising the alarm if I didn't think there was hope. And so,
yes. And
I do think that we can have a positive trajectory with this technology. I don't believe that we can do that if we just roll over and say, well, Zuckerberg knows better than me because he's a billionaire and billionaires are smarter than all of us.
Right. Elon Musk, he seems, he knows what he's doing.
Right.
No, and on the topic of inevitability, I worry, yes, overall things have generally worked out. And I would say overall things are, in most cases, better than ever right now. I mean, by almost any metric. Like, what is, how many women are dying through childbirth, and how educated is the average person, and how clean is the typical water, and just basic things. It's like, no, this maybe better than it's ever been. Okay,
it's a very good point. It is.
But it doesn't mean that things aren't still bad.
Sure.
And I don't like the idea of the inevitability of things will always end up okay. And that's why I always cringe when I hear that. There's that, I think, the Martin Luther King quote about the arc of history is long and it bends toward justice. I actually find that a very harmful, because to me, it implies that there might be ups and downs. Obama himself has said this, that it implies this idea of like, there's ups and downs, but overall it's all going to work out. Everything trends toward more democratic, more equal, more justice, healthier, happier, more educated. I don't think you can take that for granted. I don't think you can take that as an inevitability. I think sometimes you got to take the wheel. For example, orphans being chimney sweeps. Like sometimes you have to say like, no, we're course correcting. And I think that's what we're on the precipice of right now with a lot of this AI stuff and social media and all that stuff is like, I think someone's going to have to maybe grab the wheel and correct us a little bit, because this is not bending toward justice and equality and a utopia.
Yeah, and I actually think that's why it tends to bend towards justice and good and whatever else.
People interview.
My kids are now awake from their nap, so now I actually just have to go. Okay, say bye.
See you, buddy. Take care.
Hey, it's good talking to you. Sorry I talked over everybody.
No, that's all right, man. It's always great listening to you.
Oh, but Dad?
What?
Is it fun if I play with you Lego guys?
Yeah.
And then, Ronnie, I'm going to give the floor to you, but first, I know.
All right. I can't. Oh, Jim, what's up, buddy?
Jim Lujan.
I just really quick wanted to pop in to talk to Cory. And now it's kind of weird now.
Now you have nothing to do here.
By the way.
What you got there? Oh my, look at that. Purple Rain. Have you watched our top 5 album countdown?
That would be for Ronnie, that question.
Oh,
no, that's for everybody. That's for the audience.
I watched it.
Not yet.
I did watch it.
I'll listen to it.
Yeah. It was a lot. I love doing these top fives. They're so
They're
much
fun.
fun. Yeah,
They're fun. It's a nice
So,
diversion.
it's
So.
easy.
Yeah.
So I just wanted to say real quick, throw this topic out there. One is I know a guy who might use AI painted art in the backgrounds in some of his art in his cartoons,
Uh-huh.
in his animations.
Oh.
Sometimes it's kind of blurred out, so you can't really tell. You can just make the idea of like a, but it saves this guy that I know. It saves
a lot
him
of time. This
from
guy.
having to draw them, and he's drawn hundreds of them already. So
Okay, well, I'm
he
not.
can't do it.
I'm not just saying this because I think I know who this guy is and I like him. That has nothing to do with it. That to me doesn't. That doesn't make my hair stand on end. Like I did. I think I would be more offended if this guy was like generating hundreds of these images and making some kind of weird experimental animation project out of these images and then charging people for that. Like that would be like, to me, like, what are you doing?
What about if this same guy who is, I mean, I'm sure he lives in another country or something.
Yeah.
What if the same guy used AI art to make really bizarre looking album covers?
Well, that just gets into the thing of, did some artist miss out on getting a gig doing an album cover? But in my opinion, I don't really think anyone's losing a job. To me, it's almost like the piracy argument, where it's like someone pirated a movie or pirated a game. Oh, you lost a ticket sale. I don't think people pirating games and movies were really going to be buying anything anyway. I think they're kind of thieves. I'm sorry, but like they're kind of stealing a thing, but I don't think you lost a sale. Like, I think it's akin to like you parked next to the drive-in movie theater and stood up on the car so you could watch the movie over the fence. Like, I think it's a little like that, where like you were never like.
What if this guy, this hypothetical guy that lives in another country, what if he did a top 5 show with a friend?
Yes.
And while they were doing that top 5 show, he noticed he could see his friend's social security number on his desk. And what if he took that social security number and created a fake identity and charged all kinds of stuff to this guy? And the FBI is probably going to be involved with this guy, his friend. And
I have some concerns. I have some mild concerns.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. I just want to. By the way, Gary, don't answer your door.
Yeah. Do you remember that episode of Flight of the Conchords where Jermaine revealed that once when Brett was passed out, he put a lady's wig on him and pretended he was a pretty lady. He was like imagining him as a pretty lady. And like that became like a thing through the whole episode where he's like, is that okay? Is that okay? Is it gay? And like he asked Dream David Bowie, is that gay? It's like, no, but he's pretending you're a woman. So it's
all answers are yes.
Yeah.
Everything's it.
It's
Hey,
okay.
real quick too. So top 5 next week.
Top 5 next week.
I'll leave it to you if you want to reveal what the top 5 is. And there was something else. Top 5. What else did we want to talk about? Damn it. Well. Ronnie.
While you think about it, I want to. Corey says,
Thank you.
Yeah, if I sounded like there was no hope, I didn't represent my views well. Tend to get worked up about the concerns and not represent hope. No,
we all need a Corey in our life.
We do. No, we absolutely do. Someone needs to sound the alarm. And if the house next door is burning and everyone in the neighborhood is saying like, your house is going to burn down too, it's inevitable. It's going to burn. That's what happens. The fire is spreading. You need to make peace with the fact that your house is going to burn down. Somebody needs to be out there taking charge saying like, nope, get some hoses, get some buckets. I bet we can keep this house from burning down at least. And that's what you're doing. You're saying like, this is a danger. And unless you guys start paying attention, like it could go in a bad direction. I think emphasizing the hope, that's where you get for the history arcs toward justice attitude, where it's like, it'll all work out. It won't.
Gary, with that, I just want to say, I want to leave you with my words of wisdom.
Okay.
When the house is on fire, bring the hose. Okay.
Yeah. You keep bringing the hose, Jim. All right, Ronnie. How's it going, man? I'm not going to say anything
I'm
at all.
all
The
right.
floor is yours. I'm going to look at my page.
Yeah, pretty much. It's really sad because with this topic, it's funny that you brought it up because, you know, watching YouTube videos and then going on Instagram, you actually start seeing ads about the AI, like literally showing how people are like typing stuff in and it creates beautiful work.
Yeah.
And I totally agree that, you know, like if someone's like, well, you know, I use the AI to get references that I can't find online, you know, but if you're play going directly in and creating something and then selling it on merchandise, because let alone if you go on Society 6 or any of the other places, unless you're making fan art, people don't give a shit about your work and they don't give a crap about who you are. And they don't care that you spent 2 hours to make this like beautiful design, and but they think that, oh, you're charging it for $25 while this person is charging it for 10, even though that person's only getting $1 through that sale. They're still cheating because they're using an AI to produce work faster.
Yes.
It's just like with retail, you know, you have all these self checkouts. Then you have people complaining, you know, there's not enough cashiers at the registers. You take out that cashier and now you put in machines that you could do it yourself. Oh, I hate that I have to do someone else's job.
Right.
You know,
Yeah.
just people are just complain when stuff's not done easily enough for them. And they don't realize how much, not just the value of the dollar, but the value of the art that that artist has put into it.
Well, and I think, in my opinion, the value of not just the artist's work, but the artist as a person.
Yeah,
The
exactly.
artist as someone who's showing you something, telling you something, bringing an experience, bringing a perspective. You know, that's something that, and to me, that's what I care about with art. That's what makes art, I think, valuable. It's a part of what makes something art, is that there was some kind of experience or emotion or message or something, some thought behind what's happening. And that's what this stuff is not, you know? And that's why again, my default position on it is sort of like, I don't care.
Yeah.
Like, I just don't care about it because to me, it's not, I'm interested in a perspective. I'm interested in a take. I want to read your comic. I want to see someone else's, like something they made, with a story they wrote, with a position, a take, a feeling, and something. Like I want to have an experience. And again, this is like, you know, it's picking up rocks on the beach and saying like, this looks like something. That's a fun experience, but it's not art. It's not art. You know, an example I gave, you know, in a thing I wrote 1,000 years ago that I reviewed just last night. I was writing, Roger Ebert had come out and said, video games aren't art. And I was writing for I was doing a lot of games writing at the time. And so I felt like it was such a thing that I had to write an essay about it. I had a lot of things to say in that essay. I don't know. I'll read it again and see if it's worth posting. But the one thing, it's like, if I have a brick wall in my backyard that's half collapsed, that's not art. It would be hard to argue that's art. But if I take a picture of it, that could be art. What's the difference?
I take a picture of it and then I Photoshop it and then add a filter to it.
Or even if I just have like, you know, a
and
nice
then sell it as an
framed
NFT.
photo, like I just take a nice picture of it, that could be art. So what happened?
Yeah.
What happened in the process? What's the magic? What is like the waving the wand over it that made it somehow art? It's that I chose an angle. I chose how to light it. I chose how far or close to be. I chose, like, I'm communicating something, or at least there's communication, inadvertent as it may be, in the choices I made. I made choices, and not choices like typing in penguin in a top hat into a search field, but actually making artistic decisions. And there's none of that in AI generated imagery. And
Yeah.
that's why it's totally uninteresting to me, other than just a weird technological curiosity. Now, some people are having fun with it, whatever, they might find it interesting. It is kind of fun. Look, like I said, I sit and enter things in the prompts just to see what would come out. And because of my particular configuration, I exhausted my interest in it in like 15 minutes. I was like, okay, I got it. And I walked away, and I didn't care anymore. Some people are in a great love affair with it. I'm hopeful. So here's my optimism for Paul. I think this will run its course.
Yeah.
I think it's a fad that will just we'll move on to the next thing. The one thing you can say about everyone online is their attention span is short. And I think while AI is still going to be a problem, and why there still is like a bill that's coming due, this specific example, AI generated imagery, I think, again, I was wrong about MP3s. I think won't get it. Like, it's not going to go anywhere. It's just the thing of the moment.
Yeah.
And it's going to blow over, and 6 months from now, it'll be something else.
I totally agree. It's one of those things, like, you could use the AI to, make a sweet Batman design. People love Batman, but just like with movies, outside of like people who are diehard artists or comic book collectors, it's like you just don't have. You're not just a fan of Batman, but you're a fan of a certain artist that drew Batman the way you liked it.
A take. Someone's
take on it. And an AI can't really generate that. Like you were saying, like, each artist has, like, one artist might draw thicker lines or do coloring, or might just create something a lot different than another artist.
Different proportions, different idea of what the costume should look like, different idea about,
Yes, the AI is creating something amazing to look at, but each of us are creative in our own way and think differently in our own way. And that's what makes us all unique.
Yes.
So in the end, AI could only be as powerful as its user,
Well, and that's why I've always, if you go back to any of my videos, going all the way back to the 75, D versus M 1975 era videos, I've always said, I would rather read, I'm not saying like a general you, a generic you, your shitty comic about a bad weed trip you had, than like some run-of-the-mill corporate, like straight middle of the road bullshit. I want to see something individual. I want to see something personal. The older I get, I'm less interested in the quality of the work. I'm less interested in the budget. I'm less interested in who's publishing it, and more interested in, is this something fresh? Is this something?
And that's the problem with a lot of major comic book companies, like with Marvel and DC. They're creating so much of beautiful images, but then outside of the images and the action and everything, the story sucks.
Yeah, it sucks, or it's well trodden. It's like I've read the story 1,000 times before. And there's no, especially if you're talking about the big two, and you can't do any absolutes with this, but especially when you're talking about the big two, like there's not a lot of like real personality, because they don't have that freedom. It's very hard. Like if it would never happen, of course. But if DC came to me and was like, we need you to do a Batman, I'm sure, like, first of all, here's this phone book sized list of rules of how you do a Batman and what you can and can't do with Batman. And so you get, like, that's why it's like, I'm just not, I want to see something. I want to see the artist in the work. I want to feel the artist. I want personal work. I want individual work. I want a fresh take. I want a unique perspective, and that's now what I'm looking for, whether it's at a gallery or in an indie comic. Like, I want to see, like, what's something I've never seen before. What's something
Exactly.
fresh? What's something interesting? What's something different? You know, and I think some of that is just age and like, I need novelty. I've seen a lot of art, guys. I've read a lot of comic books. I've seen a lot of
Mhm.
movies. It better be cool and fresh, you know, like, because otherwise I'm going to be bored. Like, it's like,
Yeah.
yeah, I've seen this. Yeah. Okay, so it's sort of like Superman. Okay, yeah, it's sort of like Punisher. Yeah, it's sort of like Spawn. I can't do it anymore. I'm saturated. It better be new and fresh. And that's another thing where it's like, you don't get that with AI generated images. I'm
Yeah,
not looking
exactly.
at that and saying like, wow, what an interesting take. There is no take. There's no take.
Well,
There's
like you
nothing
said with
there.
copyright, what if you have
Yeah.
3 people selling the exact same image because they thought the exact same way to say it?
Well, at best, it's a weird Frankenstein's monster of 3 unique takes.
Yeah.
You know, where it's like,
Exactly.
well, that's really shitty to those 3 people.
Mhm.
You know, can you imagine? I mean, I don't know, the odds are probably 1 in 10 million, but can you imagine if you saw one of these AI generated things and I could tell that there's a weird kind of Jenny from D vs. M 1997 in there?
Right?
Like, it'd be like, you motherfucker. You know,
Yeah,
like,
it's like,
that's
you know,
like
it's like
not
it's like a
cool.
woman going to a party and some other girl's wearing the same dress she is.
It's exactly like that. And I've been there. I think we all have. No, no, it's actually a really good analogy, kind of a good analogy, but it's more like you wore a dress to a party, you went home, you put it in the closet, and then some weirdo came in and took the dress, you know, and put it on and like is now like, look at my new dress that I
Mhm.
made. It's like, that's not what that is. I don't know. Okay. I'm gonna try and come down now. I'm gonna try and namaste this shit down to a normal, getting into drawing mode now. I'm making original art, guys. This is all me.
Exactly.
D vs. M is conceived, written, and drawn by Gary William Hodges. MFers. There's not
They're done.
not a single AI image anywhere in this book.
Mhm.
You can be confident. Okay.
I buy that for $1.
There you go. And that's what we should all be buying. And also, you know
Yeah.
what? As a matter of fact, we got another person like that right here. Ronnie Gunter. There is no AI generated imagery in his comic book. What's the name of it again? Picture
A
comic.
Vengeful Heart.
There you go. Vengeful Heart. He's not a hack. He's making it. He's doing the work.
Yeah.
And
a
you
lot
know
of
what?
work.
Where is he? Salazar Art Nation, Frank. Yes, he's enjoying the AI generated image thing right now. And that's fine. I'm not judging him for it. But his books, he's doing the work. Butt in chair. Make comics, not excuses. He's doing it. He's doing the thing. These are the good examples, guys. There are bad examples out there. I'm not going to name those people. It's good examples.
For sure.
We're the cool kids. Cory Kerr, everybody. His animation, he's doing that. He's doing that. He's coming. He's figuring out the programs.
Yep.
He's making it happen. He's got a vision. He's got a picture in his head. And unlike these people are like, I came up with an idea. And now I'm going to have somebody else do it. And then I'm going to get the thing they made. And I'm going to go out and say, like, look what I made. He didn't make that. Cory's making it. All right. It's exhausting, man. It's exhausting being me.
Hey, it's all right. It's all right. You know, it's just with fiber, you know, the whole idea. It's like for long ago, people didn't know what fiber was. And then a couple of years ago, you're watching the Super Bowl and you see a fiber commercial for the Super Bowl. I'm like, you just don't realize that how expensive a company would have to pay to have an ad in the Super Bowl commercial.
They're the only ones making money there. They're the only ones making money. None of those people doing the work for the low bid.
So now you have a company like Fiverr being well known and everybody knows about it by now, going to those people and like, hey, I need this drawn.
Yeah.
And who's not to say that some of these people in these different countries that they're like, now I don't have to draw anything myself. I could use the computer to do it.
Yeah.
You would never know.
You would never know. How would you know? Because my understanding is like every result from these image generators is one of a kind at that moment. In theory, no one's ever getting the same thing.
Yeah.
So it's not like you could say, it looks like he put in walrus brushing his teeth.
Right.
And you go and you type in walrus brushing teeth and you get, aha, that's the image. There's no way to bust these people. And that's why I make the prediction there's going to be a Milli Vanilli equivalent in the fine art scene.
Yeah, because think about it. If
you San Francisco, there's going to be someone going to cocktail parties passing himself off as a real artist.
Yeah, because to say like with the whole idea with a walrus brushing his teeth, you could literally go to Google Words and key in teeth or brush and find out something that's similar and see if people are searching for that item more than teeth in general. So now you have the same image, but it's a slightly different because you're going off of Google AdWords and looking for words that are popular.
Right. That's our next sneak preview of the next top 5 guys.
Yeah.
Top
AIs are horrible, especially algorithms and the way, because this just didn't happen to me, but it seems like it's happening to other of our friends in the networks. And I don't even use the platform that much anyway because I forget that I have it. But me and Creed, anybody out there, he draws stickers of cartoons that we grew up watching in the past. Me and him both had our accounts shut down through Twitter because we did something that was against them. Yeah. And I'm like, I haven't used my Twitter in like almost a year. So what did I do wrong? But the same thing happened with, Scott Serkland when he would, with The Young and the Dead with Facebook.
That's
they
right.
screwed him over.
He got flagged for that his previous Kickstarter. Not the one that I think is still going.
Yeah, it is. It's still going.
You should go to youngandthedead.com. If you haven't, again, I think it's wrapping up. It's probably wrapping up this coming week because I think last I looked at it, he had like 8 days left or something.
Yeah.
So get in there. But all right. I should probably do some drawing. Do you have any last thoughts, Ronnie? Anything you want to express?
No, not exactly. I mean,
you want to disavow all opinions expressed in this video?
No, it's cool.
Okay, you're good.
I wanted to hop on. I usually around this time I can't make it, but I found.
I'm sorry it took a while to let you in, and that it was such a heated. This ended up being like big topic day. But anytime you want to come back, we'll just chill and draw, and it won't be as specific.
Not a problem.
Talking about this. What do we got?
Special showing tonight of Comics Della Morte, by the way.
That's right. What time?
7 p.m. Eastern time.
7 p.m. Eastern. That's right. Usually you're Thursday nights, but you're doing a Saturday show. So what's the topic? Who's the guest? What's going on?
The guest is a new person. He doesn't have much of a social media. It's like just through his Kickstarter, but I haven't really talked to him personally. Like, it's cool now through the show we're having people that represent these people that are making comics. So it's like, hey, I have a client that needs to come on the show at this date and this date and this date. So literally I have like 5 people lined up for the next month. So, that's a cool thing.
Cool.
But yeah.
Awesome. And then when can people expect the next installment?
The next installment?
Yes.
Of A Vengeful Heart. I'm working on that right now. It's taken a little bit longer than it usually does. Just with my health, it's not been that great. If people know, just sometimes lately, just drawing a little bit too much, my hand wants to twitch too much, and it's hard to hold a pen when your hand is spasming like that or cramps up. But and no one has to, but I do want to take some time off and rest because I just been going through so a lot. So look up Ronnie Gunter on GoFundMe and help me to go on short-term disability because only getting 60% of your check is not a lot of money. Yeah,
that's a good. If you want to Actually, I can put the link up if you through the private chat. If you want to send me the link, I'll post it.
Yeah, I'll have
You
to
got
find
it.
that.
You got it handy, but I don't think I have it at my fingertips.
But yeah, like I'm hoping like it's kind of going the way this end of the year. It probably won't, but definitely at the beginning of the year, I will have a Vengeful Heart in a physical book. That's the plan.
Nice.
Because while I'm on my short term, you know, I'm gonna take time to work on my book. I'm not just gonna take time to just relax, because doing my comic book actually helps me to relax, even though you know it can be stressful. But anybody who's growing as an artist, it's gonna be stressful.
Hold on just 1 second.
Yeah.
Frank, how do I do that? I've never made a mod. How do I? Let me see here. Hold on. I'm gonna have to figure out how to do that.
Me trying.
I know all the Artcaster, like I know Josh knows how to do that, and I know like Scott, like all them when I've been on Artcasters, but I don't know how to.
Yeah, I did it once. I can't remember
Go
how
to
I
one
did
of
it.
your past live streams, click in the live chat. Oh, do I find one of your things and like so I have to do it retroactive, like I go back to one that's already been uploaded. I can make
think
you a
that's how
mod.
you
I'll
do
look
it.
at it when I shut down. I'll go and try and figure it out. And then in the future, you'll be able to help me out in that way. Let me see here. Wait.
Right,
I might have to. Let me look. Oh, I do. Wait, I have it. I think. Let's see. Let me see if it'll let me.
There you go. Send in the private.
Oh, you did? Okay, cool. Hold on. I have a link, but it's one of those like entirely too long links.
Yeah, probably.
Let's see here. Okay, I'm sorry, everyone. While I do this for the first time. Let's see if this works.
But yeah, like pretty much the next chapter for A Vengeful Heart, I could
This
pretty
is in
much
the
tell
chat.
you it's gonna have. Yeah.
Copy and paste that.
Say
fine. Yeah.
I was gonna say the next chapter for A Vengeful Heart, it's definitely gonna be one of those things. It's gonna have horror elements, but it's gonna have a topic that pretty much, you know, some people might get like angry about, but it's a part of a culture of mine that I love and appreciate, you know?
Okay.
So, you know, you're going to see a Native American woman talk about her life and how pretty much the white Europeans destroyed her people because, you know, in the book, if people haven't read it so far, there are Native American skinwalkers. And yeah, it's going to have horror elements, but it's going to have like real deep elements into there.
Yeah.
Talking about stuff that, you know, some people don't like to talk about as much.
Yeah.
Just like with the movie, the new Predator movie, Prey. Really love that movie, but
It's a good
you
movie.
know, people just had problems with it, and I had no problem with that at all, especially if you paid attention to how well they paid really great attention and detail to that native tribe.
Yeah, it was good. I liked it. I was surprised how much I liked it. I do think, and maybe some of this is nostalgia, but I do think it's like still nowhere near as good as the original. But of all the sequels, I think it's probably the second best one. Like I thought it
most
was,
definitely. I definitely agree with that.
And then after that, probably for me, probably Predators, where they're all taken to that game planet.
Yeah, that was
like I think that was probably my next favorite. And then the
That's
rest.
something we could definitely talk about in the show for a whole hour.
Yeah, we could talk about that because I feel like all the rest I just didn't really like.
Oh yeah, for sure. Especially the one before this one.
Yeah, the one. Yeah, what was the Predator? Wasn't that?
Yeah.
The,
Yeah.
I didn't like that. No, it was too
Yeah, that's-
self-aware. It was too silly, and it's a bummer
Yeah.
because it's the same. I can't remember the guy's name. It's the same.
Yeah, the original members of the first movie.
Yeah. Where I thought like, oh, this should be good, and I've liked a lot of the other stuff that guy has made. One of my favorite movies of all time is Kiss Kiss Bang Bang, which I think he made.
Yeah.
So I had high hopes, but no. So.
Yeah.
All right.
But
Okay.
yeah, that's what I got going on, man.
Well, good for you. I'll be watching tonight when you do your show, and I will be
Awesome.
drawing.
Appreciate it. Well, I'm gonna have to get going because I gotta get some lunch, and it's 4:29 here, so it's not too far away from the show happening.
Okay. Cool. Well, good luck tonight, and then I will see you later.
Later. Bye.
Oh, I cut him off just a little too early. I apologize. Ronnie. Okay. That's it, guys. That was actually longer than I even wanted, but whatever. Next week will probably be shorter. Next week, new name. Probably not Squatch related. Just to be nice. Just to be nice to Squatch. Squatch deserves a break. I've been giving him a hard time for 20 weeks. Switch. Tired of the titles because it's hard to tell which is which. I don't know if I. What does that mean? Oh, like knowing what, like which, like it's all just numbered. You don't know which is which topics or anything. That could be. In any case, be something different. All right, I'm gonna get to work. Squatch, you can rest easy. It's gonna be a lot of work this weekend. And then I hope everyone's doing good out there. I know a lot of fellow creatives show up to these, watch them on the upload. I hope you're doing well with your thing. I hope you're also, in addition to doing well with your project, doing well other ways. Like I said, I have a friend who's going through a tough time. And it just kind of reminded me that work isn't the most important thing. That you've got to take care of yourself and everyone around you and all that stuff. I'm not going to do a whole heartwarming thing, but you know. Anyway. Oh, yes. No, that makes sense. Tired of the titles because it's hard to tell which is which part. Yeah, the Predator movie titles are a little rough. Predator, The Predator, Predators, Predator 2. So what are we doing? What's happening? Yeah. Okay. Anyway, see you next week. Oh, also, maybe see you a little bit earlier. Sometime maybe mid-week, a new top five video. Internet sensation. Me and Jim Lujan. Listing our faves, our favorite things. Topic to be revealed probably in the next couple days. See you then.